just feel so good, good, good. I just feel so good, good, good. I just feel so good.
My name is Andrew Wilder. I have an agency called NerdPress. We do website support and maintenance. Most of our clients are food bloggers, so we work with a lot of Mediavine publishers. We are currently supporting about 325 sites. I've got a team of 4, and I'm looking to hire more. So it's been great. So we cover a wide variety of issues helping our clients. Been at the tech stuff for a long time. I've contributed to WordPress core. I like dogs, and I am not a lawyer. I threw that in there because some of the stuff we're going to talk about actually does have legal ramifications now. So I'm going to touch on it, but I'm not the authority. Go talk to Jamie Lieberman. She's up on this a lot more. So I pitched this session in February to Megan, and I was like, primarily because I wanted to get better at accessibility. I think it is the next frontier. Google has, they've pushed SSL, they've pushed site speed, they've done the mobile, and I think accessibility in general as a category is going to be the next big push. So I wanted to stay at the forefront of this and really start to learn how I could help my clients and help you, and how we can all get better. And I actually got more and more excited about it as I learned more because I realized it wasn't what I expected. It's really about supporting everybody, and I'll get to that. So basically, the breakdown of this talk is going to be, first I'm going to try to convince you that this is important. Since you're actually here and not at the other session, I'm guessing you already kind of get that. And then I'm going to go through 10 things that you can do as content creators. And then I'm going to give you some more tools and resources to help you learn more and take action. So let's get started. 1 in 4 adults in the United States have a disability that impacts major life activities. So pretty big stat, right? When we think of disabilities, we often think of somebody who's totally blind or totally deaf, and that's not the case. There's a wide spectrum in here. It was really eye-opening when I started looking at some of the stats. 1 in 8 men are colorblind, either partially colorblind. Red-green colorblindness is the most common, but some are also, I saw a hand go up. Colorblindness rarely affects women, which is fascinating. It's passed down through a gene on the mother's side. But when you think colorblind, it's not all black and white, right? Red and green is a particularly challenging one because those are the most important colors. Red is bad and stop, and green is good and go. And so we use that a lot on the web. 8.1 million Americans have some degree of vision impairment. How many of you are wearing glasses, right? And this is one that really surprised me. 19.9 million people have difficulty lifting or grasping, which means using a mouse or a keyboard is difficult for them. That could be carpal tunnel. It could be you don't have a limb. It's the whole range of things, right? So we all have the mouse or the trackpad. It's horrible for ergonomics, but a mouse or a trackball. There's various devices, but there's a lot of people have a mobility impairment that impacts them. 20 million people we're talking about, right? So when you start to expand it out, John Brownlee made the point, on a long enough timeline, accessibility becomes important to everyone. This will impact all of us at some point in our lifetimes. And there's actually a stat I heard that every year after the age of 25, our ability to use the web and to intuit new web interfaces decreases by 1%. So I don't know how old you are, but 1% a year goes down, right? And it gets harder and harder. So you're all at 98%, right?
1% a year our ability to what?
Use the web and intuit web interfaces. So I'd like to understand the web interfaces.
See, I had trouble understanding you.
Sorry, I know. And I'm sorry, I talk really fast, so I'll try to slow down. So basically, your ability to use the internet goes down 1% a year.
1%?
1% a year. Just as we age, our ability to absorb new interfaces is the same reason 6-year-olds are so good at working an iPad. It's just intuitive to them. So there are 4 main types or categories of disabilities. Permanent is the one we think of most often. Somebody's completely blind or completely deaf, or has something along those lines. Somebody's paralyzed. But it's a lot more than that. Situational is one that was surprising to me. I hadn't thought about it this way. You're at the bar in the hotel lobby, and you're trying to watch a funny cat video, and you can't hear what the person's saying. You've got a situational disability, right? Another example of that, for all you moms out there, you've got a sick baby in one arm screaming, right? And you're trying to get on the web to find your doctor's phone number. So you're impaired. You've got a disability in there. So most of the time, it's no offense to your mothers. But most of the time, it's like it's not always an ideal situation for anybody, right? So that's the biggest difference there. So we have invisible disabilities, fibromyalgia or Crohn's disease, things that you can't really tell looking at another person. So we have those. And then temporary disabilities. You have an injury, you have an illness. How many of you try to work when you have a really bad head cold? It's a lot harder, right? So that's a disability. So one of the analogies that's used in the accessibility world is the curb cut effect. So you guys all know what a curb cut is? It's that wheelchair ramp basically on a sidewalk. So it was developed for wheelchairs, so it was a technology basically developed for disabled people. But over time, this starts to help everybody. How many of you had to roll your suitcase and you've used a curb cut? Or you've ridden your bike illegally on the sidewalk, you've used a curb cut, right? Something like this becomes so widely used that it's no longer considered an assistive technology. It's just normal. And so that's what we want with the web. We want everything like this to be just normal for everybody. So the bottom line is accessibility really means usability for all. Yeah, tweet that. Somebody please tweet that. Because when we make the web more accessible, we make it more usable for everyone. So that's what's going to expand your audience. That's going to get people to stay on your site longer. It's going to get you more revenue. The other thing is it will help keep you from getting sued. So this is kind of very current. The Americans with Disabilities Act essentially requires that your website be accessible. The act was written in late 60s, I think. So it doesn't mention the internet because it didn't exist, right? So this is going through the courts right now. In 2016, Domino's was sued by a blind man who could not order a pizza on their app. And Domino's fought it, and they lost. And they lost in the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. And then just maybe 2 weeks ago, the Supreme Court declined to hear the case. So they're done. And so it's not national because the Supreme Court didn't hear it. But basically on the western side of the United States, the ADA now applies to websites. And if we have Q&A about that, I'm going to send you to Jamie in the back. I know she's up on that a little bit more. But with that comes lawsuits because we're in America. So in 2017, there were 814 tracked cases about website accessibility. 2018, 2,285 cases, 181% increase. I think it's probably going to be 4,000 or 5,000 for 2019. So you don't want to get sued, which means you need to make an effort to make your website accessible. I know these slides are going to be available later. I'm putting links to all this stuff. So there's a lot of additional content and resources on each of the slides too. Okay, so just because it's the law and there's a lot of rules about this, I'd never want to let perfect be the enemy of good. I'm still learning about this stuff, and I'm putting it out there, and hope you'll get better. I'm going to keep getting better. It's going to be a process. But the goal really is to maximize your curb cuts. So all those little on-ramps, you want to maximize all of those on your website. So it's a nice way to think about the analogy. So how do we do it? There's a group that's put together the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, WCAG. It's a great acronym. These have been around since the 90s, and they've updated them about every 10 years. It's just a set of standards and guidelines that say, hey, if you're doing this, here's how to do it and make it accessible. This is considered the gold standard. This is not the law. The law basically, it's still developing, but the law is your website must be accessible. This is a set of guidelines that is considered the standard of how to make it accessible. So there's WCAG 1.0, 2.0, and now there's 2.1. So 2.1 is the latest version of this. 2.0 was in 2008, and then 2.1 was recent. It's a slight modification. But if you're looking to meet the standards, you want to meet WCAG 2.1. And then there's 3 degrees of meeting the guidelines. There's A, AA, and AAA. So AA is basically what you want to shoot for. AAA is very difficult. A lot of people say AAA is impossible. So AAA really only applies if you're targeting a specific audience that will have specific needs. So WCAG 2.1 AA, that's the goal. Yeah? Okay. So WCAG breaks it down into 4 different buckets or principles of accessibility. So every guideline meets one or more of these, it fits into one of these categories. So the first is that it must be perceivable. So can a user perceive whatever it is with senses available to them? So if it's something that is only available to somebody who is, or if it's only an image, if somebody's blind, you need to present an alternate form of that content to that person, which we'll get to. But basically, no matter how their senses are limited, you have to provide them something to whatever senses they have. It must be operable, which basically means the user must be able to operate the interface. In our case with websites, it's navigate your website, click on links, go, use the navigation, and scroll and read your content or access your content. It must be understandable. So you must be able to understand the information and how to operate the interface. So you write something, and there must be a way for them to comprehend whatever that is, and how to use the interface, because you have to understand the interface, not just be able to operate it. And then it must be robust. And this is one that I hadn't thought about a lot. It must be able to work on a wide variety of user agents, including other assistive technologies. So a screen reader is an example. And as the tech evolves, it should continue to work. So it must be robust over time. Does that all make sense? Cool. Okay, so I'm going to go through 10 recommendations. And I'm focusing mostly on content here because you're content creators. And I'll give you some tips on the stuff sort of like theming and other stuff around your content. But this is stuff you can do on your site yourself when you're writing your next blog post or when you're going back and cleaning things up. Font size is number 1. The general guideline is your fonts should be 16 points or 16 pixels. It really depends on the font because fonts do vary. So you kind of have to use your best judgment on that. There's no hard rule. I know Mediavine likes large fonts and larger line spacing, so it's a win-win. So increase your font size. If you're not sure, go larger is generally the advice. Yes?
I'm sorry, EM size, is it still a thing for fonts?
M size is really a relative scale, so it depends on what your base size is. So you'll have to look at your site and see what the font size ends up being. You can kind of get a feel for this if you're looking at your site in 100% zoom. Do you have to squint? How does it compare to other sites? When in doubt, go larger. I have one client who her font size is huge, and I actually was like, I think you should dial this back. And she said, you know what? I've had people email me and say how great it is that they can read her site. And I'm like, I stand corrected. This is great. Keep it. It was like this. I mean, she might have been like 24 point or something. I mean, it was very large. But it works for her, and she knows her audience, and her audience appreciates it. And I think especially on mobile, we all work on our desktops, right, or our laptops, and we don't check the font size on our phones, and it changes. So it's really good to pull it up on your phone and see, do you have to squint, and that. Another one of the guidelines with font size is when users zoom on the page, you have to be able to zoom to 200% at least without affecting the content. So do you know you can hit like Control plus in your browser or Command plus and zoom in, and it'll say like 125, 150. Like I work on a large screen that's kind of far away from me at home, and I keep my browser usually at 150%. So I can see fine, but it's easier to zoom in. So you can do this really easily on your site. Just load up your site, zoom to 200%, and make sure it still works okay, and things aren't overlapping or getting in their way. Sufficient contrast. This is one I see all the time. There's a trend in web design to do gray fonts on a white background, and it makes it really hard to read. So the guideline is that text, like paragraph text, should have a contrast ratio of 4.5 to 1. The ratio is basically from 1:1 to 21:1, and 1:1 is like white text, white background, or black text, black background. There's 0 contrast. 21 would be pure white, pure black. So everything's going to be in between those. And so for text, it should be 4.5 to 1. For large text, the guideline is a minimum of 3 to 1. So you don't have to be quite as contrasty because you don't need it. But that is a minimum. It's a good thing to be a little more contrasty. I don't know how this is going to look on the slide, but this is an example of 2.58 or 2.85 to 1. So that's the gray is 99999 on white or vice versa. And here is black and white. A lot easier to read, right? Good, translated on the projector. Excellent. So, do you want to read a whole blog post written like that or like that? There you go. So, number 3, don't use color as the only means of conveying information. If you do, you could be excluding more than 12% of your audience. So that changes usability for them, but it also helps everybody with usability. If color is the only means, you might not pick it up quite as quickly. The most common culprit of this is links, or this link text. Where's the link in here? Now where's the link in here? Everybody thinks the underline is really ugly, right? That's the standard since the web was born, and there's a reason for it. You don't have to do blue. I just happened to make it a little stronger here. But even that with the same green underline. By the way, that's Mediavine's teal, which is not 3.5 to 1. Okay, so it's a beautiful teal. But,
How would you change that? Is that WordPress?
that's going to be like in your theme. The simplest way to do it, if you're not going to change your whole theme, your theme may have color controls. Same for font size. So if your theme has those controls built in, you can just.
Underlined or not?
That would be, so it's usually in the CSS or the styling. So you could go to the additional CSS and basically do like A, and then say text decoration underline. So yeah, that's not directly as you're adding content, but it's so important. Here's another example. Most of us have a form on our website for like an email opt-in. So on the left is a form where somebody filled it out and they didn't get the email address correct. They forgot the .com, right? So they hit submit and it reloads and it shows you just a red border around it to indicate there's something wrong. Well, if you're red-green colorblind, it's going to look like that on the right side. Where's the problem, right? No idea. So a better solution is you can use color still. That's good. But add icons and add an explanatory text. This is really hard for everybody. This is so much clearer as an error message, right? Cool. All right, number 4, provide meaningful text alternatives to non-text content. That's a fancy way of saying use the alt text on your photos. So how many of you know what an alt tag is? Right, so you're inserting a photo and you have this alt text. And historically, publishers have been really bad about using that for SEO instead of for accessibility. So you're making a apple pie and you just put apple pie in every one of those, right? Instead, what you should be doing is describing the image to somebody who cannot see it. It might not be somebody who's blind. It might be somebody who doesn't have images loading, or they're on an airplane and the images didn't load, right, because the internet's slow or something. So you want to describe the image. So I found this in a Facebook group. Victoria's not here, are you, by any chance? Okay. I wish you were. She chimed in on a conversation. This was a couple years ago, actually. My husband is blind, and he gets so frustrated by alt tags that don't tell him what is in the image specifically. What he wants to hear from a screen reader is details. Parsnip risotto in a blue bowl and wooden spoon stirring parsnip risotto, not just creamy parsnip risotto on 7 different images. So I'm helping her spread the word here. The other thing is don't put your Pinterest description in the alt text. Like, I think for a while Pinterest was pulling that, right? Unless it's describing the image. So you can still put your keywords in there. You probably should, right? But use a sentence and like write as if you're speaking to a human, not to Google. So Google's pushing for this as well, so it's going to be a long-term win overall. The other place to use descriptive text for non-text content is in videos. Videos should have closed captioning or transcription, or ideally both. So, assuming there is spoken word to transcribe. I like it. I hate watching video on the internet unless it's something that can only be conveyed in video. So if there's a transcription, I love it. I'll scroll past the video, I'll skim the transcription, which can be skimmed, and then decide if I want to watch the video or not, right? Or I know where I can jump to. So I find it very useful. Yeah.
So you're talking about not necessarily, so those are two different things. Closed caption is,
Right, so closed caption and transcription are both tools for providing the same content. The ideal is both, but you don't have to do both, but one of them would meet the AA guidelines.
So, like on YouTube, you would post the entire transcript of what you said?
You could, yeah. YouTube also has an automatic closed captioning system, so just hit go on that and it'll do it. And you might have to correct it a little bit, but you upload a video to YouTube and it can do it for you, so it's not that difficult. And then you just, I've heard it gets it like, Eric, do you guys have the ability to do captioning?
Not yet.
It's on the list now. Awesome. Don't let perfect be the enemy of good, right? Or, yeah. All right, so number 5, use headings, subheadings, and lists correctly. How many of you started blogging and you're like, hey, I like the size of the H4 tag, so I'm going to use that for my headings, right? Guilty. So this one's going to suck, but you got to go back and fix it. Screen readers and Google use heading tags to help understand the organizational structure of your content. I have an example here. This is Ben, who's on my team. This is his blog, and I was like, hey, send me an example of good H tag usage. So the post title is going to be H1. Your theme should take care of that. And from an SEO standpoint also, that should be your only H1 tag on the page. But then he comes down, he's got an intro. He's got Greyhound drink history as an H2. Then he's got a subhead here. What goes in a Greyhound drink? H3. And a couple of H3s. Then he's got an H4 under this H3. So you see the outline structure start to develop. So you don't want to jump around. You don't want to confuse it. You can then, he could have another H2 down here and continue though. So it should follow that sort of Microsoft Word outline format. When you write this way, it's also easier for you to understand, right? You're organizing your thoughts better too, so it comes across a lot clearer. Any questions on the H tags? So the answer, if you're like using them for, because you like how they look, is you got to fix the tags to make them look correct, and then you have to go back and actually edit your content. I don't know of a way to really fix that programmatically because it's the content, right? Number 6, avoid idioms, jargon, abbreviations, and other non-literal words. This might not apply to us too often, but I referred to the Americans with Disabilities Act. I didn't just say the ADA. A lot of people might know what that is, but you might not. And this fits under the category of understandable. Your writing should be mentally accessible as well as physically accessible. So you just want to be careful to make sure your audience can understand what you're saying. Number 7, create content at an appropriate reading level. The general standard for web content is 8th grade reading level. Your audience may be all PhDs, but you might still be better off writing at an 8th grade level because everybody has a situational disability from time to time, right? How many of you use Yoast SEO? I would expect all hands to be going up. That has a grade level report in the tools, right? So it can tell you. You know your audience best, but that's a good starting point. Be intentional with link text. So links should be concise but descriptive. This is good for usability, and it's also really good for SEO. Google's special sauce when they started was link all of the links, right? And what the actual text that's linked actually has some weight. It still matters. And so you want to be linking the right words. So avoid linking, click here, more, read more, link to whatever, info. Like, it doesn't mean anything, right? Yeah, tweet this one too. Do I have an example of this? I do. So one simple trick, right? You guys, do those ads still exist? Mediavine doesn't let those through, right? So if I say there's one simple trick for making perfect brownies, click here to read more. Okay, so if I'm on a screen reader and it's reading it really fast, it's going to say the link is click here to learn more. That doesn't tell me as much as saying the link is one simple trick for making perfect brownies, right? This is actually the entire reason the World Wide Web is what it is. It's all about linking based on this. This is the whole point, fundamentally, of the internet, of how it started. So try to get in the habit of linking the actual thing there. You don't need to say, click here in here, because if it's a link, that means click here. That's by definition. Does that make sense? All right. Another culprit on this is often in themes. In your recipe index, you'll be looking at appetizers, and it'll say view more at the bottom. You actually want it to say view more appetizer recipes, right? Because on a screen reader, I don't know what view more means. So that's something you might have to work with your developer or your theme developer. Continue reading ... is a culprit on WordPress. That's like a default. Continue reading about appetizers. Okay. How are we doing on time? Okay. Number 9, everything should be accessible and functional with the keyboard only. Go to your website right now if your laptop's open. Just load up any page on your website and then hit the tab key and see what happens. Can you tell what is highlighted? If you hit tab, it should start selecting things, and you should see an outline of what's selected. And you should be able to navigate through your site with just the keyboard. That's going to be more theme dependent, right, rather than your content, but it's something to take a look at and see if your site can do it.
That just blew my mind.
Yes! So open up any page on your website and just press tab. And then it should select something on your navigation, and you should be able to tab through all the links on your page. So if you keep pressing tab, it should work its way down.
Where would it start?
It depends on your theme. Usually it'll start in the menu. It might start with it starts on the first link, basically. So whatever the first link on your page is, it should be selecting that. So if it's not highlighting something on the page, if you look in the bottom corner of your browser, it may be showing you what link is actually selected. It might be showing you like the URL is changing as you press tab. So what that means is there's something in your theme overriding that highlighting, because it should be there by default. That's called link focus. So you can use style sheets to add an outline for a focus. So it'll be a:/focus in the CSS. Number 10, provide a way to stop or pause animations, sound, and video. So video starts playing and it's got sound. There's got to be a way to stop it, right? And I know Mediavine provides a pause button, right? So that's great. But it's not just video. It's like, how many of you have a slider on your homepage that auto slides? There's got to be a way to stop it. Because if somebody needs a little bit more time with a slide, they need to be able to pause it and absorb the content of that, or they'll be able to step back. I'd advise against sliders in general, but if you do have one, it should be able to stop. Rotating ads can be distracting. Any ongoing animation, for somebody who has like maybe ADD, they can find that animation very distracting, so it's hard to read the content. So they need to have a way to stop and pause all of it. So how do we do all this? This tool is great. It's wave.webaim.org. You can go there right now, and it has a form where you can just put in your website, and it'll give you an accessibility audit, basically, of that page. It'll highlight all the links, and it'll give you lots of pointers, and it'll give you a lot of advice. There's a lot of really good tools like this on the web. Tools will get you about a third of the way there. You have to use a brain and look at those, but it's a great place to start. So definitely put your site through Wave. Webaim.org also has a ton of great information. Google Lighthouse, which is in the Chrome developer tools. Google PageSpeed Insights uses Lighthouse for the speed testing, right? So that's actually in your Chrome browser already if you use Chrome. But Lighthouse also has an accessibility audit. So like Google PageSpeed Insights on the website just does the speed part, but there is an accessibility portion. Kind of looks like this. So if you're looking at your site, I don't know if you can see it here, but if you open up the developer tools section in Chrome, which is, I use F12 on my PC, it gives you this whole section here, and there's one called audits right there. I don't know if you can see that. And in the audit section, you can say, hey, I want to do an audit for accessibility. And you basically just run it, and it'll give you a report. And I got an 88. Woohoo! So it gives, okay, so I've got a problem with contrast here. I've got some form elements that don't have certain things. So I've still got some work to do. But it gives you another list of things you can do. And you can, since it's in your browser, it's very fast, and you can work with it from there.
What should you shoot for? What number?
100?
Like, where's good? You're like, all right, this is cool.
I don't know what the number really means on this, actually. Yeah, I don't know how they calculate this number. So honestly, I'd ignore the number. Much like with GPSI, ignore the number, look at the timings, and just try to fix this stuff. And again, you may have to take this with a grain of salt. It's an automated tool, and you could look at it and go, no, this contrast is totally, like this contrast, I think because it's over an image, it got upset. And I'm like, no, that's actually really pretty strong contrast. Another great tool is called the UserWay widget. Userway.org provides a free widget. There is a WordPress plugin for this. It's in the repository, so if you go to plugins, add new, and just search UserWay, real quick to install. And it adds a little widget on your site. It defaults to the upper right-hand corner. And so it has a little accessibility icon. That's it. And if you hit Control-U, or if you click on it, it opens up this menu of all these accessibility tools. It doesn't change any code on your site, but it basically does it all client-side on their browser. And so if you click on a couple of things, it can modify your site for that user. So I increased the contrast here. I think I highlighted links. So like all the links are yellow and underlined. It's not pretty, but I can use it, right? There's a couple of other good WordPress tools I want to mention. How long are we? Do we have till 2:30? Is that right? Okay. This one, clunky name, WP Accessibility Tools and Alt Text Finder. That's the full name of the plugin. But if you want to scan your site for missing alt text, this can do that for you. It has some other cool tools in here. Where is it? This has a contrast ratio checker on it. It has also a WCAG checklist, so you can kind of work your way through some of those things. Let's see. There's also another plugin called WP Accessibility that does something similar, so you might want to test that one out. It's also in the WordPress repository, and it's free. Another thing I suggest is add an accessibility statement to your website. So just like the privacy policy and the affiliate disclaimer, why not add an accessibility statement? It doesn't have to be much. It can be, hey, I've done this, these things to improve the accessibility of our site because I want my site to be accessible for everybody and usable for everyone. If you find something that could be improved, please let me know and add your contact information. And then if somebody actually contacts you, follow up and improve that thing. So this URL here, the w3.org, they have some sample statements, and actually they have an accessibility statement generator, so you can use that tool to generate it. And it really doesn't have to be much, but it shows you care, and it shows you're working on it. And going back to the lawsuit thing, I think that's really important. It's kind of like putting the ADT sign on your front lawn. Just doing this alone might cause the lawyer to go after somebody else. But you have to be sincere about it, right? If somebody does contact you, make it better. Okay. Another suggestion I have is if you're going through a redesign and you've hired a developer, put the WCAG guidelines in your contract. Now, a developer will be very quick to say, oh, well, it's going to violate the guidelines as soon as my client doesn't add the alt text. It's like, okay, but the things that they can control, they should be doing. So a lot of things we covered, text size, font contrast, underline links, navigation on keyboard, all that stuff is something your developer should be taking care of if your theme isn't already. And the nice thing about this is it is a set of standards and guidelines. So you can just say, hey, you have to meet this, and they know what that means and they can refer to it, right? You don't have to spend time negotiating and have a 10-page extra contract. It's like, here, check that box. Kind of like saying, hey, I want to meet a GPSI score of 85 or whatever. You could put that in your contract. So the more we press on designers and developers to do this, the more they're going to do it and the better they're going to get at it. And so that's also going to help everybody level up on this. I've collected a few other resources in here. The WCAG quick reference actually is helpful for going through and you kind of look at each recommendation bullet point by bullet point. There's the A11Y project. A11Y is a numeronym for accessibility because there's 11 letters between A and Y. Ironically, I think that's tremendously inaccessible to use that. And I don't know how to pronounce it. I don't know if it's the Ally Project or... Anyway, the accessibilityproject.com has a lot of great tools. Google has some good tools. WebAIM again. And UserWay actually has a really attractive and easy to use contrast checker. So you can plug in your font colors and it'll show you your contrast. Yeah. All right, that's what I got. And yes, we've got 8 minutes, and I'm happy to stay also after, but yes.
So for the alt text and the photos.
Yes.
I've been doing them based on, thinking I'm describing it to a blind person. But there's a little thing I have a doubt about. Let's say I have a recipe it's an Instant Pot spaghetti and meatballs. So I have a bowl of spaghetti and meatballs. There's no Instant Pot in there, but it's a bowl of spaghetti and meatballs. So I'll say, white bowl with spaghetti and meatballs with a fork and a napkin. It was made in the Instant Pot or something like that. Or Instant Pot spaghetti and meatballs in a white bowl. Is that okay, or should I completely leave the Instant Pot out?
I would leave the Instant Pot out, personally. I don't know if there's a better SEO answer, but if there's no Instant Pot in the picture, why would you say it? These are humans reading your content or taking in your content in some way, right? They're going to know that this is an Instant Pot recipe. You don't have to put that in. That's kind of shoehorning in it, but if it's a bowl of spaghetti and meatballs, that's what it is. I'd just describe it.
Perfect.
Yes?
So, people with disabilities, don't they have their own critics? Like, I have my trick to read the New York Times because it got too small for me like 3 years ago. I blame the New York Times. to me, but I definitely have heard stuff, like, about, because they're older, my readers are older, some of them, like 75 and 80, and have the same issues that I will eventually have.
Do you have a Facebook page or a Facebook group for your site?
I can reach my readers.
Ask them. I think that's,
Ask them, like,
yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Because I don't know the answer to that, honestly, but your readers are the best people to
But
give you that answer.
You said you use your own screen and use Chrome or something to go up to 200% at home.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, I just zoom in. But a lot of people might not know they can zoom in.
Right.
Right.
So that's one.
Right. I sometimes see sites where they have a little text size thing in the corner. Some of the larger sites where you can just click on it and it just automatically makes the text larger. So if they're providing a visual clue to say, hey, you can do this, which is what the UserWay widget does too, right? So UserWay has a text size thing, so you can go larger with it also. Yes, Sue.
So I figured out that I needed to change the way I was doing that with the alt text. But so all my older recipes, I mean, I fixed some of them, but I haven't fixed all of them because I think I was listening to actually the theory of content, which is by Mediavine. Well, Amber does it. That says it's kind of a waste of time to go back and fix it. So should we go back and fix
For alt?
all of that? Like I mean, I've been blogging for 3 years, so I don't have probably the number of recipes that a lot of these people do to fix, but should we be fixing all of that?
The answer is yes, you should. But you got to prioritize things, right? So you've only got so much time in the day. Like if I were you, I would say look at my top 20 or 30 or 40 posts, start working through that list. You know, if people aren't going to that content, it's not as important.
Right.
But yeah, your alt text should be correct.
Yeah, I think I fixed a
So it's
lot.
the constant working on it. One of those plugins may be helpful also to help you find the ones that are missing. Yes?
For the people that are like getting sued for stuff, like are there sort of like, I guess, high priority items? Like I'm just wondering, like people getting sued, like is it over something really specific that's obvious, like they've made no effort, or is it like, hey, this alt text is empty on one image out of 1,000, we can sue you? You know what I'm saying?
And Jamie, you might be able to answer that better than I can. The question is like, what exactly are people getting sued over? Is it like, oh, you've got a missing alt text?
No,
I mean, it's
it's full out, no accessibility at all right now.
right now.
Yes.
So the example with Domino's was he could not order the pizza on the app, right? He just couldn't make it work. Not that it was hard to use, but he couldn't use it. Well, so that was Domino's argument, right? What? Yeah, don't make that argument. I think we should end with that. That's fantastic. Cool. Thank you very much. I'll be around. So.